Ni hao, everyone. Today's story is called Round and Round and Round and Round by Colin Thompson, with pictures by Penelope Gamble. When Mrs. Golightly retired, she bought a bicycle. There was a basket on the front for her dog Reggie and a basket on the back for her lunch. She put on her hat and set off round the world. She didn't actually say she was going to ride round the world. She just said she'd keep on travelling until she felt like coming home again. It might be a week, she said. It might be a year. It might be forever. "OK, see you later," said Mr. Golightly, who thought she'd probably be back about dinner time. She wasn't. She rode out of the valley where she lived her whole life and followed the setting sun towards the sea. She sat on the cliff tops with her arm round Reggie and the two of them ate sausages as the moon rose over the horizon. "This is the life," she said, as she lay back to sleep beneath the stars. The next day, Mrs. Golightly rode south. She kept away from freeways, travelling down quiet roads that trickled through the countryside like lazy rivers. She passed little towns where things were the same as ever. She stopped at farms to buy eggs and more sausages, and she slept in long grass by clear streams. On the fourth day, she came to the top of a hill. It was a great hill, perfect for riding a bike down. Not too steep, and with a gentle curve that seemed to go on forever. Halfway down the hill was a little cottage. As Mrs. Golightly rode past it, a child came out of the gate and ran after her. "Can I have a ride?" he called. Mrs. Golightly made him ask his mum first, and then she sat him in the basket next to the sausages. He was a very small boy, so there was room for his little sister too. At the bottom of the hill, a man ran out in front of them. "Are you going south?" he said. "We are," said Mrs. Golightly. The man sat on the crossbar, and when they had balanced his sister on the front mudguard, off they set. There was no problem while they were still travelling south, because, as everyone knows, going south is always downhill. But when they arrived at the south, the man and his sister decided they'd like to go west, and so did the professor they'd gone to visit. "I don't think there's any more room on my bike," said Mrs. Golightly, "and I don't think I'm strong enough to pedal a bike with all you lot on it." "No problem," said the professor, and while everyone sat in his back garden and cooked sausages, he took the bike into his shed. "He's making a lot of noise," said Mrs. Golightly. "I hope he knows what he's doing." "Oh, yes," said his wife. "He built a moon rocket once." When the professor had finished, the bike had 5 seats, 3 wheels, and places for 4 people to pedal. There was room for everyone, with space left over. So the next-door neighbours locked up their house, sat their cat Joanna in the basket next to Reggie, and they all set off west. "We can fix a trailer to the back if we want," said the professor, "and a sidecar." By the time they reached the west, there were 3 old ladies in the trailer. They had picked them up in the middle of nowhere, which was 2 days past the town at the edge of nowhere. The old ladies had brought their barbecue with them, so they could have hot sausages and tea without even having to stop. "We'll go north now," said Mrs. Golightly, which, as everyone knows, means going uphill. It was hard work, so Mrs. Golightly sat in the trailer with the 3 cooks while 4 strong men from the local fair pedalled slowly north. When they reached the place that was halfway between north and the south, they met an old man on a bike coming the other way. "What's the north like?" asked Mrs. Golightly. "I don't know," said the old man. "I'm on my way there right now. But you're going south, everyone said. I lost my compass last week, said the old man, tying his bike to theirs so he wouldn't get lost again. The nearer they got to the north, the steeper the hill became, and the slower and slower the four men pedalled. At last they came to a dead stop. No problem, said the professor. I built a rocket to the moon once. Luckily, they'd stopped right outside a hardware store which had everything they needed. The professor bought wheels and bent wire and string and a huge propeller and more wheels, painted red to make them go faster, and a screwdriver. When he'd fixed them all to the bike, everyone climbed onto their seats. Then the man from the hardware store and his 3 children jumped into the new sidecar, and off they went. The north was lovely, just like the south, only further up. This is the life, said Mrs. Golightly, as they all swam in the sea. Everyone agreed, except the 2 divers who were fed up with the north and wanted to go east. That's where we're going, said Mrs. Golightly. Reggie kept growling at the diver's pet seal, but apart from that, and Joanna trying to catch the old lady's parrot, everyone was having a great holiday. They didn't meet anyone while they were travelling east, which was good, because it meant that when they got there they'd room for the twins who'd been left behind by their parents who'd gone south. That's where we're going, said Mrs. Golightly. Downhill again, and with all the clever things the professor had built onto the bike, they flew like the wind. They went so fast they had to make a parachute to slow themselves down. They flew round a corner, and there in the middle of the road was a man waving his arms. "Brakes!" everyone shouted, as they pulled all the levers they could find. "Do you want to go south?" said Mrs. Golightly. "No," said Mr. Golightly. "I want the front door key you went off with." "Oh, it's you, Gerald," said Mrs. Golightly. "I didn't recognise you with that beard." "My razor's inside the house," said Mr. Golightly. "I've been sleeping in the shed." Mrs. Golightly decided that she'd seen enough of the world, so she and Reggie waved the others off as they went round again. About a year later, the bike passed their house for a second time, but this time all the people riding it were new. They came into the Golightly house for tea and sausages, and then set off again. The bike went by every year after that, and every 5 years or so, Mrs. Golightly got itchy feet and went round too.